thank you all for being here and coming to our panel on stopping scams. I am Dan Segal. I'm the Vice President of Financial Health at JPMorganChase, and I'm joined here by three scam fighters who are working to keep us all safe every day. If you didn't know that was your title, that's your title now. I'm going to set the context on why we're having this conversation quickly, and then hand it over to you all to talk about the work you're doing. So I'm sure that, unfortunately, I probably don't have to tell anyone in this room about scams being prevalent, but I would love to just take a quick scan of the audience. If you have received a suspicious text or a phone call you weren't expecting or seen an ad that, yes, okay. So if you could all look around, I think everyone is familiar with the problem. But what I don't think is known is kind of the scope and scale of loss that these scams create and the thorniness of the problem. So I wanted to set that context. That's the bad news first, and then I'll talk about what makes me optimistic. I'll start with some of the numbers, which are last year alone, Americans were estimated to lose almost $200 billion to scams. And despite all of us getting those texts and knowing about them, those numbers continue to grow and grow fast every year. And scams and scammers target our vulnerabilities. They target our loneliness, they target our financial precarity, they target our stress and anxiety. And because of that, vulnerable populations are disproportionately affected by scams as well. Lower income Americans are twice as likely to be targeted and twice as likely to lose money to a scam. Older Americans lose the most money, sometimes their life savings. And there are victims on both sides of this equation. A lot of scams are perpetuated not by individual actors, but by international, very well-organized crime organizations, and they traffic the labor that conducts these scams. So there are victims all across the world as a result of this on both sides of the equation, and that is not to mention a lot of the emotional loss and trauma that people feel when they are scammed. So it's a very significant and growing problem, and that's why we're talking about it today. What makes me optimistic is that people are stepping up to the plate to fight against these scams. At JPMorganChase, we invest billions every year to prevent and detect fraud and scams. We also educate or train our bank staff to recognize scams as they are happening for our customers. And we host workshops all over the country, not just for our customers, but for the community to learn how to detect scams and keep themselves safe. But we know that we can't do it alone and that no one can do it alone. This is a problem that affects all of us, and it requires all of us to solve. And so that is why we've also been investing in the ecosystem. We have founded and participated in cross-sector national coalitions to stop scams. We've invested in new research to help equip practitioners to better prevent scams and keep people safe. And most recently, we announced a nearly $14 million philanthropic grant to 7 organizations that are working to prevent scams every day. And I'm privileged to work with all of those organizations in my role, and we are all privileged to have 3 of them here on the stage today. So one of the things that really excites me about this work is how many different angles we're approaching it from. And Alex, I'd love to start and hear a little bit more about you, if you could introduce yourself, your organization, and the work that you're doing.
Sure. Thanks, Dan. Hope everyone's enjoying lunch. I'm Alex Glazebrook. I'm the VP of Business Operations at OATS, Older Adults Technology Services from AARP. We're a 501c3 charitable affiliate of AARP, and we've been working since 2004 to basically work in that middle ground between aging and technology. So we connect people to technology with purpose. So our programs are all focused on things like health, financial security, and resiliency, which is why we partnered with JPMorganChase, social connection and isolation. And we deliver those programs online, in person, and actually over the phone. And through that, we're reaching over 1 million people a year, and the average age of the person we actually work with is 73. So we're working towards the older age spectrum, but that's where the needs are most acute. And I think what Dan mentioned earlier, and partially why we were so excited to work with JPMorganChase on this, is older adults, specifically when it comes to fraud and scams, have the most to lose. Their net worths are the highest. They have the most durable assets. And we're all seeing things like deed theft, romance scams, fill in the blanks, and older adults fall victim to those at rates higher than younger demographics. And that's why we're so excited to partner on this and try and make a dent in what I would call an epidemic.
Thank you, Alex. We're excited to partner as well. Chrissi, you're taking a different approach. Do you want to speak to Prosperity Now? Introduce yourself. Sorry, I did that a little bit for you. And talk a little bit more about the approach you're taking and why you think it'll be effective.
Hi, I'm Chrissi, as Dan said. I'm Chrissi Johnson, Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at Prosperity Now. Prosperity Now is a national nonprofit intermediary organization. So I use the term intermediary pretty intentionally here because we view our role as being the connective tissue between the 86,000 organizations in our network that are across all 50 states and territories, the boots on the ground, the people connecting with the community where the trust is. And we help to provide the tools to help scale their work when they have limited resources or experiencing friction administratively or otherwise. Sometimes that friction occurs in the policy space, and we can be the translator both up and down to ensure that representation is accurate, both in knowledge and in movement in the actual policymaker space. And so our solution comes at this multifaceted problem from the specific space of providing the tool to help scale the community infrastructure that exists at CDFIs and other community-based financial institutions. It's a pretty straightforward tool based on using your cellular device, which I was making fun of myself earlier for using the term cellular device, which is really just a cell phone. But you can use your phone, your hand computer, pocket computer, to take a screenshot of something that you may think is a scam. And you can send it to your trusted financial institution in your community, your CDFI, community lender, whatever it may be, and you are connected to our infrastructure that is teed up with that community financial institution to assess what's happening. So we have an AI-powered infrastructure that assesses what's happening, can tell you this is definitely a scam, connect with your CDFI immediately, let's make sure that everything is protected. We will never tell you it isn't a scam. It is not worth the risk to say something isn't a scam, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but these scams are evolving at such a rapid pace that all we can do is say, maybe, I hope it's not, and then evolve as quickly as we can with the scam. The second part of this tool, so that's the prevention aspect of it. The second part is the Insights platform. So it's wonderful that we are hopefully able to prevent this in these communities that are, because scammers are particularly nefarious, being preyed upon quite frequently. It's even better if we can help prevent it long term. So our Insights platform actually gathers the data from the communities that are experiencing these scams at a higher frequency and helps feed it and connect into a platform and connect it across the country so we can actually start identifying some patterns and hopefully start preventing this before it reaches even the broader financial ecosystem down the road. And again, because these systems can be so fragmented, this breaks down the silos so that we can be smarter than the scammers, start learning these patterns, start informing ourselves and building better tools to prevent it long term as well.
Thank you. And Amanda, not to put too much pressure on you, but you're representing the public sector on this panel, so can you introduce yourself and tell us more about the role of ESET?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Freed. I'm the Assistant Treasurer in San Francisco. And often in settings like this, people are like, why would a treasurer's office be involved? And so I'll share a little bit about what we do so you have a sense of why we're here and working on this great effort. So in the treasurer's office, we are also the tax collector. So everyone loves, we send you your property tax bills. We bill and collect about 150 different taxes and fees, everyone's favorite government service. And then we take in the money for the city and we invest it. We keep it safe, we hold it. We are the city's banker and investment officer. And about 20 years ago, the treasurer said, I really want to use this know-how, this authority that I have to help make the lives of people in San Francisco better, help improve their financial success. And so through a variety of programs like Kindergarten to College and Bank On, both of which were started in San Francisco, we're helping folks build assets, handle their money more safely. We have free financial counselors. And we've also really tackled debt, both in the private sector, but I think more importantly in the public sector, and looking at the ways in which government debt really brings people down, makes it almost impossible to get ahead, and in some cases actively keeps them down. And so as we think about this work around scams, we have sort of two halves of our brain, right? The one that really knows how to bill and collect, how to say, you owe us this money, pay this now, and the side that's talking to people every day and hearing about people. We spoke to this young man who exited the foster care system and was desperately looking for his first apartment. He was living in a shelter. And he paid $75 for an application fee and finally found a place. He was about to pay $650. It seemed too good to be true, and he mentioned it to a friend. And thank goodness he did, because it was a scam. And he said, I was so worried that I wouldn't have a place to sleep that I was willing to overlook so much in this advertisement, and I almost just blew it. And that's what we're seeing over and over again at scale. And we feel like as government, we have this really unique ability where people trust us. They may not love that we send them their tax bills, but especially at the local level, people know we're the ones that come clean their streets. We put out the fires, we send the ambulance. And so we have a really unique authority and ability to connect with people. And that's what we want to do through an initiative we called Stop Scams SF, where we're going to create alerts. We're going to scrape where people are already making these reports. There's a bunch of great trusted places where people are making reports, and we want to aggregate them for San Franciscans and make it much easier for them to identify if something is a scam or not. And then we also really want to spend a lot of time scam-proofing city government, because it is insidious. Every day we see, you have a parking ticket, your utility's gonna get shut off. And it's really important. It's sort of game-changing for government to figure out how to make sure you know when you actually owe something to the government or not. And we think there's a lot on the line there.
Yeah, thank you all. One thing I wanted to touch on, and Amanda, you talked about this, so maybe I'll stick with you first, is trust. Right, so when I asked this room who has seen a suspicious text, everybody's hands went up, but we are still seeing losses to scams go up and victimization rates go up, right? And so we need to move beyond just awareness into behavior change. I think trust plays a really important component in that. I know you've spoken to that, and I'd love to hear from all of you, but maybe Amanda, you first, on how you think about making sure that consumers change their behavior, that people change their behavior to stay safe.
Sure, I think we're seeing it across government. So in our kindergarten to college program, when you graduate, you can tell us you've graduated, what you're doing after college or after high school, and then receive your money. And this is money that's been set aside for you by the city, and in some cases that you've added to over the years. It's becoming harder and harder to convince people that it is their money and it is not a scam. And so what have we done? We've actually turned back the clock. We have all these wonderful email blasts and text message capabilities. And what we found is we have to get in person with students at schools, have them see that we're real people, that their teachers trust us. We have to send letters to their homes so that their parents can see physical mail that they've received, and when they get a text message, say, I did get something about that, and then go to the school district website themselves and be like, yep, it's there. We're doing the same on tax bills. Nobody will pick up a phone call from our office, which on the one hand makes me feel good that maybe people are starting to wake up that SF tax collector could be a fraud. And on the other hand, you really need to pick up that phone, because if you owe some money, we want to help make sure that you get up and running back on your feet again. And so for scams, we're really taking that same approach, that same understanding that we were all very quick and very excited about all of this digital communication. And really what we need to do is be ever present as real humans, show up where people actually already are, and create a lot of opportunity for questions, inbound questions, real-time inbound questions and responses. And so that's the kind of approach that we're going to take on the scam side as well.
I think we have time for a little bit, so let me ask a follow-up question. Could you just speak a little bit more to the real-time question and answer piece? That's a really interesting part of the trust building, so would love to hear a little on that.
Yeah, it's so hard because it's hard to do all of this at scale, and so we want to make it easy for people in the comfort of their own home when they may have a lot of shame to sort of detach and ask some questions to a non-human, right, and get some answers that way in the time that they need it. That's really important, and so we'll make sure that's always available. But then when you start to have more questions, we want to have a place for people to go. We already have a network of financial counselors. You can go to the main branch library and speak to a counselor. We have counselors embedded in housing programs and the women's building and a whole bunch of the LGBT center. And so you can go and actually meet a real person who's qualified, who understands, and will also treat you with a lot of respect and take the time to interact with you and make sure if you've been scammed that we give you some resources to help you get back on your feet. And if it just gave you a good scare, that it's enough to kind of bring you to the table and help you take the next step. And we do think there's kind of both of those approaches are necessary here, but the real human back and forth is going to be critical.
Yeah, thank you. Alex, I'd love to go to you next. I know you provide a lot of programming through different channels, in-person and virtual. How do you make sure that the people who you're sharing, like how to protect themselves, are taking those lessons up and applying them and staying safe?
Yeah, it's hard, to be honest. It's not easy. And I think one of the things I just wanted to double click on that you said, Amanda, is trust is a big part of what we do. So like I said in my opening remarks, we are affiliated with the AARP brand, so that brand resonance helps people feel a sense of legitimacy to what we're doing. A lot of us may be members in here, maybe. There's no age requirement anymore to be an AARP member. You may have gotten the insulated trunk organizer in the mail as part of your membership, but so trust is a big part of it, and the way that we communicate trust is not only through brand, but is through in-person experiences that are delivered in community by community-based program partners. So our work is all licensed out to senior centers, faith-based organizations, other community-based organizations who take our curriculum and our printed materials that older adults need so they can reference it and, to your question, Dan, go back and reapply and learn. And if they get stuck, we have a hotline that they can call in. It's open all the time. It's available in multiple languages. So what we see, the application of technology skills needs to be repeated over and over and over again. And when people get stuck, if they get stuck on a small issue that they can't get past, they may abandon it completely. So we try and make sure that there are supports and solutions in community, digitally, on the phone for people. So the trust is there, but also the support is there to apply those skills and then evolve them into higher order applications.
And Chrissi, I would say the solution you were talking about, the AI tool, is kind of the most digitally native and digitally whole solution. So would love to hear your thoughts on kind of building that trust and adoption to make sure people are using it and protecting themselves.
Sure. Well, yes, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but with these community financial institutions, trust does serve as an infrastructure for them. Trust is currency for them. Trust is an asset that they can use for making transactions. It is very real to be able to call up Bob at Wilmer Community Bank, a real person from my hometown, and say, I have this concern. It is different from receiving or not knowing the exact pathway to go to, or not being sure about, is this legitimate? Has this been verified and validated by someone I trust? In that same vein, there is there is hesitance. I was going to say reticence, and then I got my tongue. Reticence around tools like AI and really like technology, and understandably so. I mean, in the past, technology sometimes has amplified and expedited some problems around discrimination in these communities. AI can run a risk of replicating bias. So how do we ensure then, but that being said, AI and technology are being used by the scammers to speed up the scams, to learn and replicate and make even smarter the scams after that. So in order to fight those scammers, we have to be using the same tools that we are using. So how do we do it responsibly and in a way that is trusted by the community? And we found that if we are working directly with the CDFIs and community financial institutions, not only do we have validators who can be our trusted resources to help get these tools, these trusted and responsible tools, to the community, we also have a trusted community member, a trusted community leader working in this industry who can continue to inform us to make our tool better, to make sure that we are doing what we are supposed to be doing as well.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to stick with you, Chrissi, for the next one. So AI is new. Emerging technologies are new. Scams are not new, right? Scams have been around longer than any of us. And so I'd love to hear how you think about how much of this is a technology problem, technology solution, and how much of this is, as I was mentioning earlier, kind of playing on different emotional, like people's different states, people's different emotional states. How do you think about the newness of how things are done now versus the oldness of scams that have existed for a long, long time?
I mean, people are dating their AI now, so there's emotion there. I do think it's important to identify that we're talking about artificial intelligence here, that even though it is technology and it is artificial, I joke, but it can seem very real to people. It knows how to replicate human emotion. It knows its audience better than a lot of people I know. It knows how to read a room. It knows exactly, it can look at what your search history is and what you're interested in. Oh, you like puppies, Chrissi Johnson? Here's a really cute little dachshund. I know you've been looking for one. Send me $500. Not joking. I almost went for it. But it is like, I do think that you can't think of them separately, and it's why these solutions need to come together. Technology and AI needs to recognize the human element here, the emotional element, and that's how we're going to, again, ensure that we are understanding the communities that we're working with, and also understanding the communities that we're working with in the way that the scammers are quite frankly already understanding them. And that will help us then not only prevent it, and that through the Insights platform and building better technology around it, but also in that we are going to be reaching the consumers, so they may feel more comfortable reporting, comfortable reaching out to Bob at Community Bank, and so on and so forth, so that we can prevent it as well.
Can I jump in? I think the other thing that's almost as old, or maybe older than scams, is shame. And for those of us working in financial security, shame is such a big part and such a huge connection to money for so many people. I think in our conversations with people around San Francisco, we hear, from so many people, I don't think this could happen to me, but I'm really worried about my mom, my grandma, I'm worried about my neighbor. And I actually think that worry and that care is something that we can build on, and we will build on in San Francisco, because you may feel like I would absolutely never fall for this, right? I know I'm savvy, I'm paying attention, but maybe you'll take in the information and share it with somebody. And the truth is, we're all going to be vulnerable at some point. We're all going to hit a low point, and we're all going to have a moment where it's going to be just as easy as it was for that young adult to try to rent that apartment. they're going to find you in your moment of vulnerability. And so I think as a community, we need to build the support to say, totally get it. You never going to fall for it. That person next to you might. So can you just listen for a little bit and work with me so you know what to do if she does? And that's something, we're really gonna work on. I don't know how successful this is gonna be, right? It's hard. It's sort of like running a political campaign. How do you convince people to pay attention when they don't want to pay attention until it's already too late?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that AI is, is making the prevalence of scams it's more, and also the speed at which scammers can create a fake website and perpetuate a scam to see if it works and then move on is increasing rapidly. So the things that we see working with older adults is that there's more scams out there and the perceived legitimacy of them is increasing, which is a problem for not only older adults but all vulnerable communities.
Yeah, and I am curious to hear a little bit more about, you said the average age of the person you work with is 73. I think at least the narrative is part of the challenge is like a lack of digital literacy in that population. I'm curious to hear you talk to, do you think that's true? Do you think that is the core challenge? Like what are you seeing and what works in terms of keeping people informed? I know you have AI specific content as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, the trends are changing with older adults. Digital literacy is much more omnipresent in age now. Device ownership is up. Broadband adoption rates are increasing. But there are pockets of disconnection, both from broadband and from skills. As age increases, especially 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, things start to kind of fall off a cliff in terms of adoption rates and like skills and what we call the foundational skills or foundational digital skills that are really necessary to be competent online really start to slide off when you get into your 80s. And that, poses a problem. And one of the things that we see too is with, the advent of new technologies, specifically because we're talking about AI, older adults are frequently the last to adopt something. So what happens now is, people are assuming, well, because technology's been around so long that, digital literacy is sort of becoming, or digital inclusion is becoming less relevant for older adults. But what's actually happening is technology is expanding so rapidly that older adults can't keep up. So when things like AI come out, there's a hunger for them to learn, but the iteration is so quickly that they get lost along the way. So it's actually even more critical now to be providing services to all underserved communities and particularly older adults, because if we don't keep them in the conversation now with the skills and the training they need, they won't be able to use the things that'll be on the horizon in 5 years from now.
I mean, just to be clear, I'm a few years below 73, but I cannot keep up with AI either, so I don't know if that is...
Same.
that might be a widespread phenomenon. I know all of you also mentioned partnerships in your work, and I talked about at the beginning how important it is for this to be a holistic approach. So I would love to just hear about the importance of partnerships from all of you, and Amanda, maybe would love to hear from you first.
Sure. I think in the city we have a lot of partners who are already working on this, right? And everyone comes from their own vantage point. So we have the police department, they're taking reports, they're doing a little bit of education. The DA is prosecuting. We have a 311 that's taking some inbound. We have our Department of Technology that's always reminding us not to fall for cyber scams. Even just wrangling the partners within our own city family is quite a lot, right? And I think especially on something like scams that are omnipresent, everyone is interested and everyone wants to do something. And so the goal isn't to be the first and to be the best, but to be that connector and to build the same trust that we want to build with our residents, with our partners. So we're definitely starting kind of internally, and then our model in San Francisco has often been to try something in San Francisco and then to share it and to spread it. And so we really want to create a partners table with philanthropy, with financial services, with business on behalf of their employees, on their customers. There's a lot of folks interested. And so we want to pull folks together so that we can best learn how to see what works on a very local level, and then how do we scale it meaningfully in a way that will work and that will keep up with all of the changes that we're seeing so quickly in the space, but not sort of lose the kind of local magic.
Well, our partners obviously are CDFIs and community financial institutions. The big thing for us with working with these partners, though, is making sure that we're not adding additional burden for them. And so we've been very focused at this current point in this program in better understanding what CDFIs are able to do with the resources that they have. What resources do they need to do what they want to do? Are there any legal or regulatory requirements getting in their way and creating friction? Or are there opportunities for regulatory or legal support to make it easier for them to address this problem? And we're finding that nobody's really asked them before. And so these partners that we're developing in this, we've developed them across other spaces, but in this very specific space, they're very eager to share what they're learning and what they're seeing, and mostly what they're not able to do right now, and what they need to be successful. So as we've been growing our partnerships, I think a big part of it is actually just listening and being able to adjust as we go along. And then, as I mentioned, it's a multifaceted problem that requires a multifaceted solution. So then as an intermediary on the other side of it, it's gonna be really important then, in order to prevent it across the broader ecosystem, that we are actually taking everything that we're learning here, and that from our partners in the CDFIs and other community financial institution spaces, and sharing those patterns and sharing that information with the broader financial ecosystem, whether it is big banks like our partners at Chase, whether it is financial coaches and other financial counselors, whether it's political leaders even. We have to get the word out there, not only to educate on the prevalence and the opportunities to prevent it, but honestly to normalize it. And partnership, that's kind of that word that you start, when you become a partner, you are on the same ground, you're on the same footing together. So it's gonna be really important to continue to develop these partners so we can normalize the existence of this, so that we can get in front of it and people can actually be open about sharing these experiences as well.
Yeah, and I think we think about partnerships in two ways. One is, where's the support coming from? You know, in Chrissi and I's world, we work in a nonprofit, so the work is not free. People think that. It costs money to do. So we need partnerships like from JPMorganChase, from a philanthropic side, to actually fund the work. You know, the work you see out in community by nonprofits, there's tens of thousands of nonprofits in this country, is all funded and needs to be there to keep critical work like this afloat. So partnership is in one lane that way, but then in the other lane for us, and like Chrissi was mentioning, it's about being able to partner with, in our case, senior serving entities that can carry the work forward in local communities. A lot of the work that we do at Oats is done in rural and underserved communities. So we partner with libraries like in the Adirondacks where my mom lives. She lives in a town of 480 people. But guess what? Her local library has our programs there because we license that library. So she can tap in. I mean, she doesn't because she's embarrassed, but she should. But she could tap into the programs that she goes around talking to the town that I created, right? So, but that partnership model can reach scale. It can get to underserved communities, and it can really, I think, broker the change that we're trying to see in the world, whether it's with financial health or any other impact. So that's, we think about partnership from a funding perspective, but then from a delivery perspective as well.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe last question for all of you, and then we might have a little bit of time for questions. I think scams are very misunderstood, as you all have talked to, right? Part of the reason is the shame and the guilt that so many people don't report it. Many of us don't think we would ever be a victim of a scam until we are. So as you have been in the work, what is one thing you've learned that you've kind of changed your mind about or updated your understanding around that you'd want the room to know going forward?
I mean, I think I would say that it's easy to fall victim to a scam. And I think people think, well, I think Amanda and Chrissi actually said this earlier, that, I'm not vulnerable. I wouldn't fall for this. I literally almost fell for a scam yesterday. I'm not kidding. I was at another conference. I got a message on my phone that said, hey, it seems like you blocked my number. I can't get through. And I'm like, who is this person? I'm like, you're not on my phone. And
that was me.
Yeah, it was probably Dan. Yeah. I was like wondering where I am for the panel. But then I'm like, wait a second. If you're getting through my text, the number's obviously not blocked. But I literally, and I work in an organization that teaches people how to use technology. And I literally asked someone, I'm like, is this a scam? And they were like, yeah. the number. So it's, I think having a sense of, feeling like we're all in this together and not like othering people because you think they're going to fall victim, but you never would, puts us all in the same, playing field.
I really thought there would be help for people who'd been scammed. So when we started this work, we were like, great, well, what are the resources out there? And there's really not a lot. And it's pretty devastating. And so when we talked to this woman who lost $6,000 because she was getting repeated calls that her electricity was going to be turned off. And she was behind on her electricity bill, and she didn't want her husband's oxygen to go off. And so she paid it. And then what, right? The money was gone. She didn't put it on a credit card. There was no way to dispute it. It was just gone. And we don't really have safety nets yet that have kind of caught up to the prevalence of these scams. And so, I feel like in government, a great responsibility to hurry up and offer people something, but I don't know what that something is quite yet when the financial losses are really so big and really hard to overcome.
And I would just say, there, not to make a plug, but if you are an older consumer and you get fraud or you think something is a scam, you can call AARP's Fraud Watch Network. They have a national hotline that deals with this. They deal with victims and support victims after they've been scammed. So it's building. There's definitely not enough support, but the Fraud Watch Network is out there doing that work.
Just trying to think of I'm surprised every day, but maybe I'm Pollyanna, but I've been so surprised and disappointed at how cold they can be. Like this poor woman that you just talked about, everyone in this room had a reaction to that. But these scammers they're also tenacious. They're like tenaciously nefarious, and they don't care. I would like to believe in a better society, but the fact of the matter is that these scammers will keep doing it. They won't care about the emotion that's involved unless it gets them what they want. And we need to honestly be prepared for anything. And so learning that there are things that I will continue learning every day around the bowels to which someone will go to get what they want in this space, I think has been the biggest curve for me.
Thank you all. We've got like 5 minutes for questions. Does anyone have? Yes.
Not a question, more of an invitation. So I'm with Consumer Action. We're a national nonprofit consumer advocacy and education organization. We do train the trainers around the country. We're currently doing one in partnership with Early Warning, you may know as Zelle. They're funding a program that we're doing. We have a Just Say No to Scams module. We're doing Train the Trainers or day-long events for community-based organizations who are faith-based, senior serving, youth serving. We do day-long training. So if you work with communities in Chicago, Seattle, Philadelphia, or Baltimore, those are the cities that we're going to this year. And if you give me your card, I'd be happy to invite you or the community organizations that you serve to attend this free training. It's from 9 to 3. We talk about scams, we talk about resources, we talk about emotional trauma, peer support groups. So it's a really wonderful session. So I'm just inviting anyone from any of those cities to reach out to me. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have a question?
Hi there. This is great, and I've almost fell for a scam last week too, and my mom has. I was curious. A lot of the things that you guys talked about also were preventative, education, etc. What things are going on, and this might be my own naivety in this space, but what things are going on in terms of preventative and the systemic issues that are starting those scams? Obviously, some of us listen to The Economist scam profile where there's, Myanmar houses where people are literally, they're that cold because they can't get out of those situations and they're separated from their families. I was wondering what's happening on that front to push some of the things that are happening and to stop those things from systemically, invading our communities as they are.
I mean, on the systemic level, I think there's still work to be done. I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what Amanda was saying. There's not enough support kind of holistically to address this. I think it's like a cross-sector, there needs to be government involvement, nonprofit involvement, corporate involvement. I mean, frankly, not to make a pitch for this panel, but I think the work that we're all doing like collectively is a step in that direction. But people don't take it seriously enough yet. And, I think like at the federal level, like the CFPB needs to be doing more. There's like a lot of stuff that needs to be trickling down so that like a systemic solution or solutions can be put in place to reach all underserved communities.
I'll maybe just say briefly to make sure if I'm understanding the question correctly. There has also been more action recently on the law enforcement side. I think you had pointed out there are so many silos in this space, and that makes it really difficult. But the DOJ launched a Scam Center Strike Force, I believe it was earlier this year, whose goal is specifically to target the scam compounds that you were alluding to and hopefully be able to recover some money from them as well.
Yeah, and I just think I think this is what you were both saying, but there's just a real fragmentation around the issue, and so what we need is more coordination across sectors, including the government, not just in the United States, but across the world, honestly, globally. Scams aren't new, but the way that they're being used and made broader is the tools are evolving and new, and because of that, it's going to reach more people, and so it's going to require, I think, a very coordinated, specific effort from government and other leaders from this country and from across the world to come together on it.
That's a great tee off to what I was actually going to say. I'm Jennifer with Patelco Credit Union. Amanda, we have roots in San Francisco. In the last, stand up, Christy. In the last year and a half, we have actually built out an elder abuse prevention program at Patelco Credit Union. We have probably over 100 advocates for elder abuse within our branches. So within our branches, we have about 2 to 3 people over a 40-branch footprint that are certified by AARP. And also training that her and I develop that we get from other partners out in the industry. So just more of a comment to say, I highly recommend if you're in a financial institution that you build out a program like that. We are now in the process too of building out, one of you had said, what happens after the scam? How do we support that member? And so we're building out a pretty robust program right now to give that post support because that is actually where it's most critical. So feel free to add me on LinkedIn, and any questions you have, we can share what we've done.
We have time for one more quick question if someone has a question. Yes, please.
Thank you. So my name is Amshuman from Capital One. So you talked a little bit about elder abuse and older, and then also about like lower income individuals. But based on what you're seeing from the CDFIs or from San Francisco, are there particular other segments that are maybe often overlooked as being vulnerable that you're seeing?
I think youth, number one, they're by far the most likely to be scammed, and I think the use of technology in that age group, it's just overwhelming. And then we also in San Francisco are seeing quite a lot on being preyed on immigrants and immigrant communities. So those are the 3 focus areas, and I'm unfortunately sure they will keep growing.
Yeah, I was going to say the immigrant communities. We actually have our tool coming out in English and Spanish, and we have it in text and on WhatsApp as well, because more immigrant communities tend to use WhatsApp, and we'll be expanding to other languages. But what I will also say is it's the problem. We talked a lot about a lot of groups up here, but they're actually underreported as well is an issue because of the shame around it, because of the fear, and because of the lack of access to proper reporting systems that just don't exist currently for those communities. So low income, seniors, youth, and immigrant communities, all communities particularly preyed upon. And unfortunately, I don't think even know the half of it because of the underrepresentation.
I'll just say one last point on that, which is demographics are easier to identify, but I would also encourage all of us to think about maybe psychometrics is the right word as well, right? Like people who are lonely are vulnerable. People who are stressed are vulnerable. People who are anxious are vulnerable, right? And there's also positive emotion. People who are aspirational in some ways are vulnerable. So that is obviously harder to track and identify, but those are things that scams and scammers prey on as well. Thank you all for being here. On that happy note, yeah. I should have ended with what makes you optimistic, but thank you all for being here.